good evening, everyone, or good afternoon, or good morning, wherever everyone is, or whatever time of day you end up watching and engaging with this recording. My name is Dominic Vogel. I'm the founder and chief strategist at a Vancouver-based cybersecurity advisory company called CyberSC. We work exclusively with small and mid-sized organizations, providing thought leadership and other risk advisory services. Myself, I've been doing cybersecurity my entire professional career, so close to 15 years now. It's all I've ever known in the professional world, and today I really just wanted to share a little bit about my story, my career in cybersecurity, just to give you all a flavor of what a day in the life looks like. The presentation, at least some of the slide deck, which I'll be referring to, is from a presentation I gave last year, or in 2020, at a conference in Orlando called InfoSec World. It was mainly laying out my journey to being a consultant and what's referred to as a virtual chief information security officer. There's a lot of parables and stories in there that illustrate sort of my career to date. So really, I just want to give you a nice little sort of 10,000-foot view of sort of all the fun things I've learned over the course of my career. And as many of you start your career in cybersecurity or look into a career in cybersecurity, hopefully this inspires you and you have lots of questions. And for those that are at least actively engaged right now and aren't listening to this as a recording, please feel free to interrupt me at any time. I find the Q&A far more engaging than me blabbing on, as much as I love listening to my own voice. So please feel free to interrupt any time and ask a question. So for me, as I mentioned, I started my career about 15 years ago. It was my first real job outside of university. I started as a security administrator for a large logistics company based here in Vancouver, and I loved it. For me, I knew I wanted to get into cybersecurity actually back in my high school days. The thing that really inspired me to get into it was when I was pouring through a bunch of magazines. This is back before there was anything really useful on the internet as it pertains to cybersecurity. And I found this magazine. It said Information Security Magazine. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. What the heck is information security? I need to learn more about this. And I read it cover to cover, and something in me just got very excited that day, and from that point forward, I ended up just moving towards a career in cybersecurity. And I know for a lot of people, especially when you're young, I don't feel young anymore because I have two kids, and one is a toddler, and he ages me every day. But you have that youthful spirit when you go into the workforce, and that was something which I just had so much zest for cybersecurity, and I still do. And one of the things which I often start as a word of caution for a lot of people, not to sort of make it sound like it's a bad industry, but let people realize that there's a lot of burnout when it comes to cybersecurity. The field is very, very rife with career burnout and with people feeling a sense of despair. It's because in a lot of organizations, cybersecurity is either lip service, or it's something which doesn't get the full attention that it needs. And for me, when I entered the career field, I had grand aspirations of being a chief information security officer, basically a person who's in charge of cybersecurity for an organization. And over the course of the first 10 years of my career, I worked diligently to that point. And for me, what was hard was that there was a lost sense of purpose. As I went through my career, it became harder and harder to try and figure out, why am I going from meeting to meeting? This is much of this is commentary on just corporate world. Whether you call it corporate America, corporate Canada, what have you. When you work for larger organizations, sometimes it seems like you just go from one meeting to another, and you feel like you're not getting things done. And that's something which affected me, like I said, during my career. And it's something which I like to be able to point out to those who are entering the field, that you need to be able to plan accordingly and know what you're going into. I very much want to promote the fact that cybersecurity is one of honestly the best career fields to get into right now. I wouldn't have wished my career turned out any other way. But if I had known about the crazy stress, about the sense of despair, about being lost in meetings, a lot of things that just aren't covered in school. Whether you're at a technical school, if you go to university or what have you. A lot of these things are almost like life lessons, which you have to learn the hard way. So that's why I like sharing that, because I think it's important to be able to know what you're going into. And for me, if I had learned the art of art of mindfulness, or the art of practicing gratitude on a daily basis, that would have helped me immensely. And I probably wouldn't have become so jaded and cynical. Took me a lot of years to erase that from my system, but just some things I wanted to let people know. And eventually, as I worked my way up from being a security administrator, I spent a lot of time in the credit union system here in Vancouver, and being a security analyst and being what was referred to as a business information security officer. Basically, I was a liaison between the technology side and the business side, and being someone who's a great communicator, that was a skill set I didn't really know about, and I sort of grew into that. And I always tell people as well, if you're interested in the field and you want to distinguish yourself from your peers or from those who are entering the field with you, I get asked by a lot of students, what tech skills should I focus on, or what new programming language, or what security technology do I need to know, or do I need to know how to use this particular firewall? The answer to me is always no. If you're talking about truly distinguishing yourself, to me, it's two things. One is just adaptability, or the ability to what I refer to as learn, unlearn, and learn again. Technology is changing so fast, and today's firewall ends up being, or ends up tomorrow just being, something which you end up removing. It ends up not being important. So that ability to learn is far more important. And the other is, which I alluded to a minute ago, is communication. And tech talk, and jargon that non-technical or non-security people can relate to. It is so important to be able to be cognizant of the audience that you're speaking to. And if you are speaking to another technical person, fine, let the geek talk fly. That's cool, but you're at least being emotionally aware of your audience. If you're speaking to someone who has trouble turning on their laptop, or is a CEO of a company and doesn't need to know the fine details of some of the tech aspects, you need to convey that message in a way which will resonate with him or her. So I think that is such a key skill set. Again, something which rarely came up in my studies. The focus was always on the technical stuff. So I always tell people at their beginning of their journey, or earlier on in their journey, work on that skill set. That is so important. People call them soft skills. I think I call them foundational skills. There's nothing soft about them. If you want to move ahead in life and in the cybersecurity career field, you definitely need to be able to hammer down that skill set. As I was working up and during my time at the credit union system, eventually I just got worn down. I had spent 10 years getting to the sort of what I felt was the pinnacle of my career, and I was miserable. I was, I mentioned earlier, jaded, cynical, couldn't sleep. I'd be up at all hours of the night. Now I'm up for different reasons, but I think my toddler keeps me up. But it was very hard to be able to feel that inner sense of purpose, or feel that inner sense of completion. And again, if I had properly prepared myself mentally for that journey, I probably would have been okay. But at that point, it led me to wanting to leave, and which I did, and I'm glad in many ways that I did, because I learned so much more about myself through what I refer to as just a journey of self-discovery. And the thing that I always challenge everyone, especially students and those who are starting their career, we may all have sort of grand visions of how we envision our career panning out. My advice to you is be open-minded. Embrace more of the journey than trying to chase down what you feel is that singular goal. Like I said, I spent, I devoted 10 years of energy toward that to get to a spot where I was absolutely miserable. what the past 5 years have taught me is that there's greater beauty in the journey than there is in the destination. So I think it's so important to be able to embrace that journey for what it is and embrace what is often referred to as a growth mindset. Many people will think about things from a fixed mindset perspective, that their abilities can only take them so far, or that they can succeed only because of their abilities, and don't focus on, again, the joys of learning, the joys of that journey. Embrace the growth mindset. Again, if I had the opportunity to speak to corporate version of me, even my version probably 7 or 10 years ago, and said, hey, you're someone who's going to be doing a lot of public speaking. You're going to be an expert at business development and sales and marketing. That version of me would have laughed and said, "There's not a chance. All you know is security, and that's all you'll be good at." Like I said, it's when you embrace that different type of growth mindset, it truly does unlock your full potential. So don't get hung up on, like I said, your goal. It's okay to have goals and to work towards them, but you got to be flexible, and you got to realize, again, like I said, there's joy in that journey. One of the things that I didn't, again, learn during my corporate time, thing that I've learned after, different skill sets in terms of, again, back to those foundational skills. To me, when we're, and a lot of people ask me when they're starting off in their career, or they're looking to enter the field, or looking to transition to the field, someone will say to me, "Oh, I spent 6 hours applying to jobs online, expecting me to pat them on the shoulder and say good job." And I say, "Wow, you just wasted half your day. Congratulations to that." And they're always taken aback. They say, "Well, that was a lot of effort. I spent half my day applying to jobs online." And to me, that's wasted energy. The old adage of you can work harder or you can work smarter. Personally, I'd rather work smarter than harder. Harder doesn't always result in optimal outcomes. Smarter does. Being able to take those energies, harness those energies, instead of, again, applying blindly online and getting caught up in those HR behemoth systems, which take your dreams and spit them out. It's far more important to engage in what I just referred to as open networking. Reaching out to people, using platforms like LinkedIn, and being able to reach out to people who may be in positions or jobs that you find interesting, and reaching out, wanting to learn more about what they do, and wanting to see if they take on mentors, or if you're able to. So it seems harder now because we're not allowed to take someone out for coffee. But even having virtual conversations with someone can go a long way. Often one of the highlights of my week is when a student or someone new to the field reaches out to me. Being where I am in my career now, I get probably anywhere between probably 3 to half a dozen students every week reaching out, asking for advice or mentorship, and that's, like I said, just a highlight of my week. And I think it's so important that a lot of people don't understand the importance of relationships, and that we don't have to go through life, seeing things from a transactional point of view. It's much more so through a relational point of view, and that, to me, I think when you tie that back to being someone who's genuine and someone who can have an aura of authenticity and remain positive. Again, having a light of positivity in a field like cybersecurity is so important. It's very easy to get down on yourself in the field, and I mean that's true in IT as well. There are a bunch of Debbie Downers, and so if you take the opportunity to stay relentless, have that relentless positivity, and practice, like I mentioned, mindfulness and empathy, that doesn't just help you survive in the field, that will help you thrive. Again, these are all things which I only learned after I left the corporate world. If I had this skill set before, I would have stayed, and it would have empowered me to be much more successful in the corporate game. So it is something to keep in mind. And as I mentioned earlier about, seeing things from a longer game perspective, it's important to understand that taking shortcuts that never works, whether that be in terms of advancing your career or doing something for work. You need to think big picture. It's something which when you're looking over your career over a 20-year period, and this is why, going back to the point of being relational, you have to be someone who's capable of developing really strong relationships. If you want to succeed in a corporate life, or if you want to succeed as a consultant, to me, if you just want to succeed in life in general, you have to be someone who's very good at cultivating relationships. It's the old adage of it's not what you know, it's who you know, not what you know. And that's in my mind has never been truer. And what I see with students and those who I end up mentoring, they end up getting often jobs through my network. They're not getting a job that they apply to online. Or if they find there's a company that they want to apply to, they say, "Hey Dom, someone who works at X." And if it's in Vancouver, I'll generally know someone if it's a security role, and then they get a sort of a side door access from an interview perspective. They don't have to go through the HR gauntlet. So it's really important to take the time to invest in networking and invest in relationships. I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide because, as I mentioned, this was a sort of a rehash of a presentation that I gave, and I was too tired/lazy to rehash a separate slide deck for this. But the thing which I do really want to underscore as well is that take the opportunity when you're becoming, if you do go down the path of being a security professional, realize that there is more to life than just security. To me, some of the sharpest security minds I know understand other concepts outside of security. They are experts in risk, right? They are experts in understanding business, or the line of sort of the sector business or the organization that they work is. If you understand, basic like sales concepts and marketing concepps, even back to the whole concept of sales, in one shape or another, we're all in sales roles. Even if you're part of an internal security team, and let's say you're a security manager, you're going to be, and when you're trying to get your security budget, you're going through a sales process, right? You are going to be pitching your CIO or whomever you end up reporting to that you need X amount of dollars for security budget, right? You're going through a sales process to convince him or her of that, So we're all in a sales role. So being able to learn basic sales concepts and sales skills, again, can go so far, right? And will serve you so well in your career. And again, I harp on these because no one harped on this when I entered the field. It was all about, you got to be an expert in Cisco, or you got to be an expert in McAfee or whatever. And I remember I was 15 years ago, so it was before a lot of the more modern security technology that we deal with now. But it was all focused on technology. All those platforms, all those things that I spent the first 3 years of my career becoming an expert in, they don't exist anymore. And if they do, they pretty much suck and no one uses them anyway. So it's so important to become a truly well-rounded, not just professional, but person and human being. That's how you'll succeed in the field and in life in general. One of the things which, at least on this side, which I do feel is important, I mentioned earlier, platforms like LinkedIn, platforms like that I truly believe that there's a tremendous power in harnessing that and building an online sort of tribe, or being part of an online tribe and community to further help grow your career. And it's hard to find scientific evidence of this, but anecdotally, I see that those who take the time to engage, those who take the time to cultivate a network, both in real life network, or IRL, as the kids like to say, as well as a online network of support and peers and colleagues. Those people are far more successful in their careers than those that choose not to be. And again, some of you may be saying, "Oh, hey, you know what? I'm not someone who likes talking to others. I'm very introverted." Believe me, I thought I was too. I kid you not. Growing up, I had one friend all through high school. Well, two. The other one was my brother. But one person who wasn't family, who was my friend, and I was, the consummate introvert. Didn't talk to many other people. Just did my thing, nose to the grindstone, that type of thing. But when I put myself into a growth position and challenging myself, I found out that I actually wasn't introverted at all. I was a closet extrovert, and when I had the opportunity to challenge myself on that and to grow from that, I've had the opportunity to never look back, So back to challenging assumptions, just because you assume and think that in your heart that you are one type of person, take the opportunity to prove yourself otherwise. It's okay to grow, and if you try and it doesn't work out, that's okay, right? You can still network, you can still connect with people, even if you are someone who is introverted. It's just the greatest amount of growth comes during stages of discomfort. No one ever got wiser by being comfortable, right? You don't get smarter by laying around in a lazy boy chair. Although they are comfortable, I won't discount that. But do take the time to challenge yourself, to push yourself, and put yourself into new positions. And that's where concepts like personal branding become very, very important. And that's how recruiters, that's how HR people, other organizations end up spotting you. Especially platforms like LinkedIn. There's so much headhunting happening on those types of platforms, especially in a field like cybersecurity, where there's more sort of demand for jobs than there is a consistent supply of professionals to fill those gaps. It's pretty much a guaranteed job security, and you just have to get your foot in the door. And often that way again is through networking, through platforms like LinkedIn, and through embracing concepts like personal branding and putting yourself out there. That could be personal blog, that could be on a LinkedIn feed. Giving your thoughts on a recent data breach, or giving your thoughts on a security technology, or what have you. Take the time to demonstrate initiative and take the time to grow a personal brand. That's the type of stuff that will get you noticed. That's the type of stuff that'll get you that first job, and that's the type of stuff that ends up serving as the fuel that will power and rocket your growth to the stages and the heights that you seek. We'll skip this one, but it is a good graphic of Homer there. There was a slide on LinkedIn. Two concepts then that I realized I didn't mention, but that I wanted to touch on. Firm believer, again, in developing, when we're talking about personal branding and developing that capability. There's a concept which is referred to as KLT, or know, like, and trust. And when you take the time to invest in a personal brand, and when you take the time to let more of yourself out there, and like I said, whether that be on LinkedIn, whether that be on forums, whether that be on YouTube channels, what have you, people get to know you, people get to like you, eventually people get to trust you. When you have relationships at the trust level, that's when, like I said, I always joke, that's when magic happens. Whether that they know of an opportunity at a business of a friend's, or they know of some awesome consulting opportunity, or what have you. That's what you're striving to do when you're building and cultivating your relationships. You're investing in what I refer to as emotional equity. And when people are invested emotionally in you, and you vice versa, that again ends up being amazing rocket fuel for growth. And so it's so important to be able to connect really at a human level. And especially during a time like COVID, where we're all socially distanced and all isolated at home. The more that you can connect with people, the more that you can have that human relationship. And again, it is possible, right? You don't need to have physical proximity to someone to developing a relationship. Some of the closest friends that I've formed, especially during the pandemic, are people that I've never met in person. In all likelihood, I never will. You just live in very different parts of the continent or of the world. Many of which live in parts of the world where I'll never visit, or I have no plans of ever visiting. But they have become lifelong friends. So it's really, really important to be able to invest in that from that perspective. One of the things which I've noted as well, and I think is really important, especially, again, not so much necessarily at the beginning of your career, but as your career goes on, really, really take the time to be able to also connect with non-security people or not even non-technical people. Again, when we're talking about really fleshing yourself out as a well-rounded professional, well-rounded human, the more you can learn from other people and other experts, that allows you to even be better at what you do, whatever you end up doing in your career, whether that be security related or not. Whether that be learning from people who do public relations, marketing, communications, privacy, or programmers, or programmers is a bad one. Scratch that one. That's a technical one. Or any other industry. When you're able to see the world through other viewpoints and other eyes, it allows you to refocus and recenter in terms of how you view the world as well, and how you view your place and the work that you do. If you're always just operating in your own little sort of security / IT fiefdom, you don't know how the rest of the world works, so don't be sheltered, because the more you can understand how your work, especially your working as a cybersecurity professional, how that helps, how that fuels organizations, how that empowers, again, whether that be a small business or a massive multinational enterprise, the more that you're able to connect those dots and understand that why, that'll allow you to be the best version of yourself as well. I'll skip that one. That's more from a perspective. For those of you who, over the long run, maybe may choose to go down a consulting route, it was something I obviously never considered at the beginning of my career, but I made that choice 10 years in, and I haven't looked back. And so for those of you who may look at doing that in the future, one of my sort of things I always tell people is, don't chase big money. Don't chase the money. Don't be an ambulance chaser type when it comes to getting clients. Really, and this was again, these are harder lessons that I learned the hard way. That it's okay to say no. If there's an opportunity that you're like, oh wow, this is going to be great money, I really want to do this, but something feels off, or the people you'll be dealing with don't align with your values, or something, you feel like it's going to be a bad client, don't chase the money. You need to be able to learn to say no. And I have a firm no jerks a policy when it comes to our clients. And when my team comes to me with sales leads and biz dev leads, I would say, okay, well, what's the jerk factor here? Is it between 0 and 5? Are these jerks, or are they not? And because life is too short to work with bad people, and I left corporate so I could choose who I get to work for, and being able to empower good people who are on amazing missions for their organizations, that's far more fulfilling. So I always like to say now that I try to chase kindness far more than I chase money. Chasing money never ever leads to a good situation. Over the course of my career, and the one I want to focus on here was that there's a lot of emotions that you go through as a professional, and especially early on in my career, and heck, even as I transitioned into being as a business owner, was imposter syndrome. This is something that the best of the best struggle with, and I often see that, the people who are the most capable and the people who go on to greatness are often those who get stricken by imposter syndrome. The people who don't get that, they end up being politicians or what have you. But it's okay to get imposter syndrome. Feeling that, basically, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's like where you feel you're not capable of doing something, or that you feel like a fraud, that you feel like someone's going to find you out, that you don't deserve to be where you are. Those are, again, feelings that do come up. And one of the things which, and for me, this flared up much towards the late stage of my corporate career, was I realized that being able to combat that, one of the best things was being able to engage in the art of mindfulness. being very mindful and practicing sort of what was referred to as a gratitude attitude can go a long, long way, and really it comes about, embracing that type of mindset and engaging that with a growth mindset perspective, knowing that you're not limited by your abilities. You're only limiting yourself by your willingness to learn and to continually learn. So having that type of mindset really goes a long way in terms of combating and battling imposter syndrome. So, and when we come sort of to at least the tail end here, really the thing I want, I know I mentioned gratitude and mindfulness, really, another key lesson learned, during over the course of my, where was I? There. Of course, my career was really take the mindset of being able to have that gratitude and mindfulness, being able to be very process driven, the understanding that it's not all about technology, especially something about security. We, as technologists, so many of us just get caught up in the technology and forget that there's a people factor to doing cybersecurity well. Then we forget there's a policy and process level to doing security well. Right? It's not just about chasing the technology. So learning to embrace that, understand that, and know how all three are needed to basically blend together to provide truly effective security. Again, something I wish I had appreciated earlier in my career. Focus on that one. Really, like I said, to me, this is a fantastic career, and there isn't a day that goes by that I'm not grateful that I've had 15 years to be in such an amazing career field, and I love every minute of it. I wouldn't change my journey for the world, because it allows me to share what I've gone through, and like I said, to hopefully inspire and empower those who are coming into the field to help them reach their full potential, hopefully to reach that potential sooner than I did, and so like I say, it's really in your hands. Take the opportunity, like I said, to focus on brand building, focus on being relational, focus on the ability to connect with others, and like I said, recognize burnout early and go in with the growth mindset. That ends up being a heck of a launch pad for your career. And as I mentioned at the beginning, embrace the journey, right? It's not necessarily the destination, it's the journey, and use that journey to discover your true self and to realize the best version of you, and I feel that this quote here summarizes that quite well. The great challenge of our life is not to become deeply spiritual by removing ourselves from experiences. Rather, the great challenge is to become deeply human by immersing ourselves in those challenges. So that's my challenge to you as you further on in your career and your studies and life. So I appreciate the opportunity to chat with everyone today, and floor is open. I left some room for 10 minutes of questions here, so hopefully people are feeling chatty.
Yeah, definitely. Great workshop. Everyone can write their questions in the chat, and then we'll be here for 10 minutes, and then right after we'll have our closing ceremony. So yeah.
Don't all rush at once. There we go. Okay, so question one, what does a day in your life as a cybersecurity professional typically look like? Oh, good question. Well, it definitely varies very differently depending on what role you're in. My day as a security administrator when I started my career, that was very busy, filled with monitoring the different security systems, monitoring logs. If I saw something that didn't look right, chasing that down. I mean, it was very similar to a security analyst. You're really about trying to identify when things aren't going right in the environment and looking for those anomalies to try and keep the networks as secure as possible. So my corporate life was very much focused on that. As I went into more management and leadership position, my focus was much more so on communicating cyber risk to the rest of the organization. So whether that be the board or the C-suite, I spent a lot of time doing that. When I became when I went out on my own as an entrepreneur, and how I spend most of my time now, I spend most of my time now actually focusing on brand building and relationship building, you know, being sort of the face of CyberSC, my advisory company. And I still do a little bit of client work. So, you know, I do a lot of still what's referred to as virtual chief information security officer work. So that's where I do security assessments, where I lay out cybersecurity strategies and roadmaps for organizations, mainly small businesses. So that's how I spend most of my day. For my kids, they just see me on the phone all day. They think I talk for a living. When did you realize that you wanted to pursue cybersecurity as a career? Yeah, so that moment of enlightenment I mentioned at the beginning of the talk was when I came across a magazine called Information Security Magazine. This was when I was in grade 12. My dad, who was he's since retired, he was a computer science teacher at a Catholic high school in East Vancouver. And you know, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my studies, he brought home a massive stack. Kid you not, it was probably at least 100 magazines, and he dropped them on my bed. And he said, "You know what? There's got to be something in here that interests you." And I went through 99 of those magazines, and then one of them, there was only one that stuck out, and that was one called Information Security Magazine, and that was the only one I read cover to cover, and that's the one, for whatever reason, launched me into a career on cybersecurity. Where do you see the cybersecurity industry in 20 years? Ooh, another good question. Well, one of the things which I put this way is that cybersecurity, entering the cybersecurity field, I truly believe is you're having job security, pun intended, for at least the next 10 to 15 years. And what we've seen is, especially with COVID, now pretty much every organization on the face of the earth has truly gone virtualized. They become increasingly digitized. We are firmly in a digital economy. With that firmly goes cyber risk. And over the next, I'd say, 5 to 10 years, more and more organizations are going to be realizing that they need to invest in cybersecurity. Right? It took the better part of probably 25 years since at least the advent of the internet for larger multinational enterprises to invest in cybersecurity and to do so well. Now we're at a spot in time where small and mid-sized organizations need to do that. So, like I said, we are firmly entrenched in a digital economy. We're not going back. If anything, we're becoming more digitized and virtualized, like I said, because of the pandemic, especially with people working remotely. So cybersecurity to me is basically going to become something which becomes fully operationalized in every organization. Just like every business over let's say 15 or 20 employees, they have someone who acts as a head of operations, head of finance. You're going to need someone who leads up cybersecurity, whether that be someone internally or whether that be you're leveraging a third party. Is cybersecurity at risk for being automated? Oh, good question. Really, really good question. So I think there's a misconception, misunderstanding. When people think automation, they automatically think, oh, that means the robots will be our overlords and we'll lose the ability to do anything. You can't fully automate everything. What I would say is that there are components of cybersecurity which are going to will be more efficient thanks to automation. Analysts and the security administrators, they're not going to disappear. If anything, they're going to become more efficient and effective at what they do, because right now they're still dealing with the proverbial needle in the haystack problem. Even the best of the best analysts, they have far too much information and data points that they have to sift through manually. Automation, when you take automation capabilities and pair that with people who are terrific analysts, now all of a sudden cybersecurity can actually be done better. If anything, automation will tip the scales back in favors of the defenders and not the attackers. So I see automation as being one of the great equalizers. Do you think university is necessary for success, and is it worth it? Oh boy, man, these are fantastic questions. It depends. I'm not going to be here like something like Gary Vee and say, don't go to, drop out of school when you're 16. I think that's idiotic advice. But I do believe that really it comes down to your own personal goals and context. Some people, need the post-secondary institution education, and it fuels them. For me, personally, I am so grateful that I went to university, that I have a comp sci degree. I learned so much about both myself, but also the ability to learn through university. I wouldn't have picked that up elsewhere. And having that ability to learn allowed me to thrive early on in my career. So I would really look hard in terms of what you're wanting out of your career and what you're wanting out of life. Is it necessary from sort of like being a prerequisite in order to get a job? No, it's not. And some of the smartest security minds I know don't have a university degree. But if you go to like a more technical college, that's just as fine. It really comes down to what your career goals are. If you have aspirations of potentially going into management or leadership, I would suggest going to university and taking courses in business and in communication, and learning how to be a leader and a great communicator, and not just focus on the technical skills. So you'd have to answer that question yourself. How can average citizens be safe from cyber threats? Is there things we shouldn't do? Oh boy, that's a loaded question. A couple things. So one is that for those, it depends when we're talking about what I mean by average citizen. If we're talking about my aunt who knows nothing about computers other than posting too much information on Facebook, versus someone who does know how to use a computer, that may be giving slightly different advice. But I'd say the main threat that a lot of us individuals face tends to be around phishing. And phishing is when information is potentially used against you to try and convince you to click on a link or send information or send data or send money. So for me, it's some of the simple things. Doing the basics. Make sure that you're keeping your whatever systems you use updated, having the applications updated. It's like getting your vaccines and your shots. It's important to do that, and when you're in social media, keep your profiles locked. Keep who can see that, to as limited as possible. Don't have open profiles. Just your network as an example. But also the other thing I challenge people to do as well is greater consumer advocacy around cybersecurity and around privacy. Is whether that means championing that and at your organization, whether that when you enter the workforce, whether that means you let your various levels of government know that if you want to see improved privacy and data security regulations, and that we want to see organizations that don't protect information and data sufficiently, that they be held responsible. And when we have greater consumer advocacy, that's going to be something that really helps push cybersecurity and data privacy into the future. So those are things that average citizens can do to make things better, and especially, like I said, as we go deeper and deeper into a digital economy. Do you think Kershaw? Good question. I'm glad someone picked up on my Dodgers hat. I think he walks away. He won his World Series. If I was him, I would certainly walk away. These are awesome questions, by the way, everyone. How are we doing for time, Victor? I know we're at the end here, I think.
Yeah, almost time. Yeah. We'll give another minute if anyone has last minute questions. It's
not on here, but if if anyone does want to reach out to me, I love it when people reach out to me and ask questions. So whether that be on LinkedIn, you can see my name in the Zoom thing there. So Dominic Vogel, I'm the only one on LinkedIn. You can reach out via the company website, cyber.sc, or you can email me, D Vogel, so first initial last name, at cyber.sc, so like Santa Claus. Feel free to reach out to me through any of those three mechanisms, or you can find me on Twitter at Dom Vogel. Like I say, whether that be tomorrow, whether that be 6 months from now, heck, it could be 10 years from now, please feel free to reach out, and always happy to have a conversation. Do you provide high school internship? Good question. Short answer is that that's is a maybe. we did do that 2 summers ago. We didn't last year because of the pandemic. We might do it this year. My business partner and I are actually discussing what we would actually have some. If we got some internship, what we would have them focus on. So short answer is maybe. But do follow up with me. Yeah, maybe sometime in April. What's the most important soft skill that you need to work in cybersecurity? Good question. So first is that I'd like to call it foundational skills. Soft skills to me implies they're not as important, but to me, when we're talking about the greatest foundational skill, to me, it's the ability to. I'd say it all stems from empathy. The ability to empathize and to connect with people on a human level, and to be able to truly understand someone else's perspective and to be able to connect with them based on that is absolutely incredible. That to me is almost a superpower. So if there's any skill that you focus on, like being able to really understand people through their viewpoints, be able to communicate with them on levels that will connect with them, that will serve you so well in work and in life.